Hello guys, as I promised in the previous video, this video is dedicated to the clock for day and night cycle. It will be the basic implementation, just to tell which hour we are at the moment. I don't like the idea of day counter, but if there will be a certain request, I'll make this. So let's get started. First of all, we need to create a folder for our widget, which will display the clock. For this, go to the contents folder, so we are on the same level with the blueprints, maps and Niagara folders, and create new folder. I'll go with the name of GUI, which goes for graphical user interface. Next, I'll go inside it and create another folder. And I'm gonna call it HUD, which goes for head-up display. Next, I'll go inside this folder. Here, I'll create my widget. Here, right mouse click, look for user interface, then select widget blueprint. Rename it to HUD underscore clock or time. I'll go with time. I'm sorry guys, that's my head. But nevertheless, let's continue. Let's open our widget. Here we can see the designer graph, but first of all, we need to create the logic for our... That's my wife. Well, I hope nobody will disturb me this time. So, first of all, we need to create a logic for our time or clock, and then we'll continue with the visual part of our feature. So let's go to the graph. It's located on the right side of your blueprint. Here, let's delete event tick and event preconstruct, because we don't need them. And let's get rid of this tooltip or a comment just by clicking on the icon toggle comment bubble. Now let's create two variables. The first one will be for weather system reference. Change its type to BP, weather system. Also make sure to check the attributes instance editable and expose on spawn. And the second one is for our current time reference. Change its type to float. Next step is to create the interface so we can communicate between the weather system and our widget. For this, go back to our content browser, select blueprints folder, and here create another folder. Rename it to interfaces. Interfaces simply is the way of communication between some entities that literally have nothing in common. Let's open our folder. Here, right click, select blueprints, Then select Blueprint Interface. Rename it to BPI, which goes for Blueprint Interface underscore weather system. Next, let's open it. Here we can see the default graph. Actually, this type of graph, the whole system of interfaces, is the system of events. Let's rename the default one to create time widget. So basically what it will do, actually the workflow is the following. Where the system, when it's initialized, will trigger the event which will be in our player controller, and that event in player controller will create the widget, and all information that we provide from weather system to player controller's function will be also provided to our widget. Now, as you can see, in detail panels we have the inputs and outputs for our interface function. We need to add one input. It will be the reference for the weather system, so rename it to weather system, and change the variable type from boolean to BP weather system. Now press on compile. Next, go back to our level, then to core folder, and let's open our player controller. Let's delete default events, we don't need them. And to make player controller know that he or maybe it can work with weather system interface, let's click on class settings. And here we can implement the interface. Click on add on the right side of your blueprint and search for API weather system. Press compile, and now our player controller has access to all weather system interface events. So right click and search for create time widget. We need to select the add event type. Just like this. The next step, right click and search for create widget. In class field, select hot time. Now, as you can see, we have weather system variable exposed, and we have weather system reference brought us with our interface. Select the connect them. Then it's a good practice when creating the widgets to store them in variables, so we can quickly have access to it from many blueprints. Rename it to GUI time. Now pull a wire from GUI time variable and search for Add to Viewport. You can expand the options and see an attribute called zOrder. Basically, the idea is very simple. If we have multiple widgets and we need to sort them in a proper way, the highest that order is, on the highest level our widget will be. So set it according to your needs. Well, the logic for creating our widget is done. Now let's go back to weather system, and on the event graph in begin play flow, let's create a logic for triggering create time widget event from the player controller. What I like most in the interface is when we are listening for the event to trigger, maybe not listening, but when we are triggering the event, we don't need is valid validation logic for preventing the error spamming during the gameplay. Basically, if we trigger it with the null reference, for instance, it just do nothing. So that's the beauty of using the interfaces. Now search for get player controller, as we are making, for instance, a single player game. The zero index is our basic player controller class, and as we are using the interface, we actually don't need to cast, because this return value will be our BP player controller class. So just look for create time widget message. Connect proper pins and right click, search for self. Self means the instance of the blueprint we are working at, and connect it to weather system variable in our function. So just like this, on event begin play, where the system is initialized, then it fires or it sends a message in the interface, which is implemented in player controller class, and tells or provides itself as a reference to weather system variable. Player controller receives the message, and when it's received, it creates a widget and provides weather system as a reference to our widget. So right now our widget has the whole access to all information that weather system actually have. Now let's create a timer in our widget which will trigger custom event for updating our time. Then pull a wire from the event delegate field of set timer by event node and search for create event. Provide a proper function, set frequency, update frequency according to your needs. Then promote to variable our timer handler, so we'll invalidate and clear when our widget will be destroyed, so it won't tick or update forever. Name it to update timer. Then let's search for is valid, the one with the question mark, and let's drag and drop weather system reference and connect it to it. Actually, I think we don't need current time variable because we can actually get it from our weather system reference. We don't need to store it here. Search for get current time. We need the validation logic in case, for instance, our world, or maybe our world is deleted and the only instance of weather system is located there, so we won't get any errors spamming while trying to get current time from the null reference. So let's continue. Now let's go to the designer graph and create a simple layout for our widget. On the left side of your blueprint, you can see the panel called LED. Here we can find the basic shapes with the behavior of ordering the elements of the widget. As for this example, I'll go with horizontal box because I need two types of data to store in. It's an image that I'll change during the day and night cycle, and text that will be displaying the time. So search for horizontal box, then drag and drop it on the canvas panel. Next, image, drop down to horizontal box, and text. Now, as you can see from the hierarchy, on the canvas panel we have our horizontal box which has two childs, image and text. Now let's rearrange it to have a more common look. But before we start, I actually would like to rename the elements of the widget. I don't really like these indexes at the end of the name. They just drive me mad. As for the image, I'll go with the name of icon. And for the text block, just text. Now we can start. Now select horizontal box, and on the right side of your blueprint you can see details panel. First of all, I'd like to change the anchor of my widget so it will be displayed on the top right corner of my screen. Next, I'll change the alignment to 0.5 on both dimensions, so the anchor will be at the center of my element. Now I'll change the size to 256 for x-axis and 128 for y-axis. As I will have two elements, this size means that both of my elements will have the same ratio. They will be equal. For this, select them both and at the layout category find size attribute and select fill, like this. Now let's rearrange the position of the element. Well, as you can see, our anchor is on the right side of the screen, so 0, 0 coordinates are starting from this point and are rising up on your right. So, for instance, if we set the x position to maybe 192, we are moving on the right. So, at this point, we need to go in the opposite direction. So, I'll just set this value to a -1. And for the y position, it goes from top to bottom. So setting, for instance, 128, we are going down. I hope you understand the idea behind it. Now select text element, then make sure to check an attribute is variable, so we can change our text during gameplay. Next, for the default preview, let's set it to 0, 0, 0, 0 to see how our font looks like. Now you need to reposition it, so go with horizontal aligned center and vertically aligned center, like this. As you can see, we don't have any background under our widget, so the result will look pretty much simple, but in my opinion, attractive. Now let's go back to the graph and continue developing our logic. Now, when we are on the graph, pull a wire from current time and search for from hours. This node will convert the input that we are providing from our weather system to a proper time format. Next, drag and drop text, pull a wire from it and search for set text, category widget. Now, right-click and search for append string. Add another pin. The A field will go for hours, B field is the separator, and C field is for minutes. Now the basic setup is done, but it's not the final version of it. Go back to our level, select weather system, set day length to smaller value, and current time any number you like. I'll go with 13 hours. Now we can launch the game and see how clock works. As you can see, it works correctly, but we need some adjustments to get the proper format for our numbers. Let's wait until 6 o'clock to see the sunrise. Let's continue. Well, as we have seen from the demo, the format for our time was not fully correct. Actually, the whole and decimal parts of a number lacked the zero in specific situations. So to fix this, we will create a macro. Now select all these nodes from hours, append to string, and convert nodes. Then right-click and select collapse to macro, like this. Rename our macro to convert time format. Now let's open our macro, and here I'll make some changes. Then I'll explain the whole logic. Well, I think everything is done. Let me check how it works in a game. Yep. As you can see, now our time format is correct. Now I'll explain the logic. So, I'm sorry guys, sometimes it's quite difficult for me to talk and show you what I am doing. So, just like now, I'm trying to find a proper word because I think not in English. So, please forgive me. And let's see. If our incoming value is higher than 10, sorry, 9, it means 10, 11, 12, and so on. The condition will be true, and we just set this value to our time. So 11, 12, 13, 14 o'clock, and so on. If the value is less than 9, it means from 0 to 8, including, the condition will be false, and we will add 0 before our value. So it will be 0 hour at night, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, and so on. So this concept is for the minutes too. Then just append our hours with our minutes and a separator to have the correct visual of our time. Just like this. Now let's go back to our graph and create a logic for switching the images according to our time. I have prepared 4 images for the sunrise, sunset, daytime and nighttime. The logic will be simple, and you can make it more wider if you want. For instance, for the weather, whether it's raining or cloudy or snowing. As for example, I'll just do it for these 4 basic periods of day. But if it will be a request, I'll do it as a weather forecast, maybe. Now let's add new macro and rename it to pick proper time, maybe. Then for input and output, we need to add 2 execution pins so our macro can be part of the flow. Now we also need to add in output 1 more attribute, and let's call it icon. Change attribute type to texture 2D. Now we can start developing the main logic. for our peak proper time macro. Now I'll make this logic, then I'll explain the flow. One period, second period, third period, and if not any, the fourth period. Well, this one is for the sunrise, this one is for daytime, this one is for sunset, and if not any of it, it's our night. The values I use is only my preference. Change it according to your needs. First of all, I want to check whether my conditions are correct. Then I'll remove the debug prints. Now let's see. If we have greater than 4 and less than 8, if it's true, we're gonna print sunset. If it's false, we're gonna reset our do once logic. Then we need to check another condition. Let me see. Well, actually, I think this will be enough. It's false. Oh, I forgot to. If it's false, we need to do this. Well, now let's talk. If we have greater than 4 and less than 8, it's our sunrise. If it's not another condition, greater than 8, less than 16, if it's true, it's our day. If not, if it's greater than 16 and less than 20, it's our sunset, and if it's not, it's our night. I'll use do once node because, as you can see, update time event fires every 0.2 seconds, so we don't need to set our icon every time. It's unnecessary action. We actually need to check the condition by this timer, and when the condition is true or false, we'll do the flow only once. Now go back to our level. Let's set day length to something small and see how our period will fire. Oh my god, I actually forgot to add our macro into our flow. Please forgive me, and let's do it one more time. Day, it's correct. Now let's wait for the sunset. Yep. Now let's wait for our night. Yep. And sunrise. Yep. And the cycle continues. Day, and it triggers only once per check. Let's continue. Now let's go back to the content browser and create a folder which will store the reference icons for our period of day. Select GUI folder, then on the same level with the HUD folder, create another one. I'll go with the name of icons. You can choose the hierarchy you want, but I prefer to keep my textures of GUI in the same folder with my widgets. So GUI, HUD, icons, and soon there will be just user interface folder. But let's go inside the icons folder and import our textures. Right click, select import to our folder. Now my source files are actually located outside the content directory, so I won't have them with my binary files. Now, as you can see, I have texture for the dawn, the dusk, day and night, period of day. Save them all and let's go back to our widget. Let's create a variable and rename it to icon reference. Then change its type to texture 2D. Now let's delete our debug nodes and for the whole period let's set the proper references of our period of day. For our sunrise, I'll go with dawn, next day, next dusk, next night texture. Then connect all the pins to our output. And for the icon, just drag and drop icon reference and connect it to the output field. Then go back to the event graph. Here, drag and drop icon variable, pull a wire from it, search for set brush from texture. Connect everything, press compile, and let's see how it works. Our game. Our sun, so it means the day, parts of day. Sun is going down the horizon, now it's our night. We are waiting for our sunrise. Yep. Now it's gonna be daytime. As you can see, everything works fine. Right now we need to create logic for invalidating and clearing the widget, so it won't tick if there is no weather system in our world. And pretty much that's all. Now let's add invalidation and clearing our timer logic when our widget is going to destruct. Right click, search for event destruct, then drag and drop update time timer, pull a wire from it and search for clear and invalidate timer by handler. Connect everything. Now, when our widget is going to destruct, it will clear the timer, so this function of updating our time won't tick. Next, we need to add an event which will actually trigger event destruct in our widget. For this, go back to our interface and create another function. Call it destroy or maybe remove time widget. Actually, I like destroy more. Create and destroy. Now, let's go back to our player controller. Here, right click and search for destroy time widget event. Next, drag and drop GUI time variable, check whether it's valid. So, if it's true, we need to pull a wire one more time from our GUI time variable and search for remove from parent. Next, we need to just set our widget with 0 reference, so our widget won't be in the memory of the engine for some period of time. It will actually be destroyed at a moment. Now, this event you can fire from any place and any condition. Actually, right now we don't have it, but basically we don't need to show our time widget in case our character is killed. So when we have our character killed, we can get controller from it and trigger the event destroy time widget, and it will work. Actually, I will make a little demonstration how it will work. just the example. Don't do this way. It's just a demo. Let's search for some key input. Let's go with the K key, and on press we will trigger destroy time widget event. The face call. Press compile. Now let's see how it will work. Here we have our time widget. Now I press key and it's gone. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you like it. So in the next video we're gonna create the interaction system, and for the bonus part it will be the door interaction tutorial. Leave a comment, subscribe, and see you soon.